stuff that he's bringing in.
Yes.
Chef, look at this.
We got some great wine
We love great wine.
from Burgundy.
Excellent.
We have our famous restuffed lobster cardinal.
Oh my God! Thank you for joining me.
Sure,
tonight.
absolutely.
Good to have you.
Yeah, it was
So,
great.
Chef made the trip up from Newport, and
Yeah.
before we get into his dishes, because he's going to definitely talk a little bit more about this, but I have to give a big shout out to my good friends in Newport. It seems like they're always getting these shout outs for all these introductions I have. But Mark and Sherry Bryce, thank you very much for the
Friends of
introduction, because every time I've dined in this restaurant, it's been with you. So thank you so much, and you have a wonderful place down there in Newport.
Thank you.
All right, so tell me what you got here. What do we got?
Okay, so if we start out with the lobster cardinal, which is basically we cook the lobster 3/4 of the way. We take the meat out, we restuff the shell with scallops, lobster, some Gruyere cheese, truffles, and lobster sauce, and then we bake it in the oven and brings it up to temperature and cooks it all the way through. And this is our classic vegetable arrangement that we've been doing for years. It's just sliced tournée, zucchini and summer squash, snow peas, eggplant, broccoli, and some red cabbage, puree of carrot with some ginger, and of course classic, potatoes.
So everything you said we
peeled.
can't see, I can see like the scallops shooting out the back here a little bit from this side, but so the scallops, the mushrooms, everything is underneath this that
Yeah.
you've cooked into
And
it.
then the cheese is on top. That's why it has cheese in it, but also on top. That's why you can't really see it. And the white sauce is Vouvray, which is just a wine from France, from the Loire Valley where I lived and studied, and reduced with a little bit of cream and some fish stock.
My God, it's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
It's making me beyond hungry. And this, as most of you know, I've talked about this 100 times. Anything duck, but especially this, I'm wild about. So tell us what you got here.
Well, this is an inspired dish from France also that had I had a coffee-crusted lamb, and it didn't seem to work. And I said if I was going to put it with something, it would be with duck. And so what you do is we take the skin off the duck, saute the breast, and then finish that in the oven with, we first then sprinkle it with, actually usually we'll put in decaffeinated coffee because people get reactions sometimes. And then we'll just bake it in the oven to finish it, and the crust, from the juices kind of solidify a little bit and give it a nice, so you can
So
slice
that's
it.
this right out here on the edge right there, right?
Yep, that's
Okay.
all. And then the sauce is just a balsamic vinegar reduction with a little veal stock and some heavy cream,
Oh my God.
and a touch of sugar to offset the vinegar. So a lot of times people are doing fruit sauces like raspberry and orange and other sauces that are really sweet with
Right.
duck. We try to make it a little more balanced, a little bit heavier in that sense. All of our sauces are, and that's, we kind of consider our cuisine more creative classic.
Okay.
In a sense, we don't do roux and things like that. That's thickened with flour and things like that. Plus, so many people have, gluten
allergies, yeah.
allergies and so
So this is
forth.
the first one I have to say that I've seen it. That's to me, that's different. I've never seen that before with the coffee on the outside.
Yep. And then the wild rice we do with a little bit of mango chutney, and that's the fried sautéed skin, the crispy skin that when we take off from the duck
Okay.
to begin with, and then same thing, cabbage and some Brussels sprouts and stuff.
Presentations, beyond the fact that the ingredients are amazing, the presentations are beautiful. And let's not forget what we got back here, because let's.
This is a really interesting wine. This is a Burgundy wine, and you've heard of Meursault and
Yeah.
you've heard of Puligny-Montrachet, two very well-known areas in France. Very expensive wine comes from that area. Well, just like anywhere else in the country, they have an excess sometimes. The French government only allows them to produce so much per acre or hectare, and the leftover is the La Flève. They bought it and then they blend it, and since it's
Okay.
declassified, when you, like, all the wines in France are named after the town or the terrain they come from, and so they can't call it Meursault, they can't call it Puligny-Montrachet. So they blend the two together, so you're getting kind of the best of both worlds at about a third of the price. And we look at for values like that, and so that we can share it with our customers. It's got that classic nose. It's just
Beautiful.
delightful. It is
Cheers.
good.
Thank you for joining me.
Hey, my pleasure.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Isn't it? Just a perfect balance.
I've never had it before. That's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it's
That could go with either of these.
yeah, absolutely.
That's beautiful.
It's strong enough to handle both, and it's
So while the chef's doing all his talking, yes, you will see me finishing this because this is absolutely beautiful. So, chef, first let's talk a bit about. You mentioned your background, of how you studied and lived in France.
yeah.
So one of the questions that we had that came up for you was, what inspired you to open a French-inspired restaurant?
Well,
And then, assuming it has to do with his background.
well, yeah. Well, absolutely. Growing up, I worked under a French chef that was a friend of my father's. Had a private chef that was in a mansion, and I started learning to cook from him. And my father was quite a good cook. But then we decided. I went to culinary school and I went to college and got a degree in hotel and restaurant management, and then went to Culinary Institute of America. After that, I moved to France and worked in the Loire Valley. And when I came back from France, I worked in New York and was the executive chef of a restaurant called Le Chateau. It's in Westchester, outside of New York City.
Yeah, I know where Westchester.
And I was there for 15 years. And so one thing the strength that I found in the restaurant there was that it was a special occasion that people would go. And no matter what the economic atmosphere would be, that you would always celebrate your birthday, your anniversary, and things like that.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so therefore, when we decided that the restaurant was getting too big, we were doing a ton of weddings, which is fine, but it wasn't really my thing. I really wanted to get back in the kitchen instead of managing 22 people in the kitchen. So
Being able to be more creative and serve guests at a regular pace.
yeah. So I get in front of the stove and cook almost every night. Now I have some great people that I've brought up the ranks and can run the kitchen themselves too. This girl Jessica O'Dunwa she's from Providence, North Providence, and
Okay.
went to Johnson Wales, and
There we go. Johnson Wales gets some mention now.
yeah,
There
she
we go.
does. She does a great job, and she's been with me a long time, and she can handle most everything in the kitchen now. And so
it sounds like cooking has been in your blood with your family.
Yeah.
And not only you studied it, so what your influence was when you were studying it there and at school, that you ended up doing this. Now, Bouchard's is a unique destination in Newport because not only do you have a fantastic location, it's Lower
Thames,
Thames Street, is that you've got an inn. So
Yeah.
you've got the hospitality side of being an innkeeper plus being a restaurateur.
Yeah, we do it
So-
all, which is nice because people can, again, you said make it a destination.
Right?
They can come in, they don't have to worry about drinking and driving, they stay overnight, and we're really reasonable compared to, some of the big hotel and price-wise. And
Not only that, but it's a destination. Your location there on Lower Thames Street
Yeah.
to be there. So how many rooms are in the inn?
17 altogether.
So 17 rooms.
Yeah.
And they're French inspired, just like the restaurant. And
Most of them, a lot of them have their own personality, but as we expanded, we wanted to make it a little more coherent so that everyone has the same thing. It's not like a bed and breakfast. It's more
Okay.
of a boutique, and everyone has their own bathroom. The room has got Keurig coffee machine, a refrigerator, and in the morning we make fresh pastries and do a continental breakfast of
that's coming up from the restaurant. Then.
from the restaurant.
Oh, that's
yeah.
awesome.
And we put it right at their door so that they don't have to go and, they can have coffee at 5 o'clock in the morning, and when this comes up between 8 and 8:30, they just sit down. There's tables in every room, and they can have their breakfast at their own time.
That's a very nice thing.
Yeah.
So your inspiration came from your growing up, and it came from where you were studying, obviously.
Yeah.
So when you came to Newport, you found this location.
Yeah. We were lucky enough to find, it was,
How many years has it been for Bouchard?
this is our 23rd year.
23 years.
Yeah.
So you're a legacy restaurant.
Yeah.
And then you added the hotel afterwards, the inn
Yep.
afterwards.
We were able to buy the building after 10 years, yeah.
Wow. So now you have something else that you're involved in. We're not going to dive into it now because we're going to go to our guests next week. But you have another restaurant that's yours at the same property, pretty much, the Revolving Door.
Yes.
So we're going to talk more with your chef, and the chef from the Revolving Door is I forget.
Josh Berman.
Josh Berman. So Chef Berman's going to join us next week when we're talking about some Newport hotspots. But that is something that's pretty much a part of your family that you've started up over there.
Yeah, and
Fantastic.
Josh is great. He worked for Mario Batali after he worked for me, and then came back to Newport. And
Awesome. So I look forward to the conversation with him next week. So Chef, tell us a little bit about the rest of your menu and things that you would encourage people to know about French dining.
Well, I think in French, people say, what is French food? And I have to explain that it's, the science of cooking is the same for everyone. The sautéing, frying, braising, stewing, everything.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I think the French do, number one, is the sauce is always such an important part of it. And it's, and the sauces and, using, we do use a lot of dairy, I have to say.
Yeah.
But the French people, if you look around, they're not obese at all. And it's because I think they do it in moderation, number one. And their big meal is usually during the afternoon. But the portions, as you can see, are big. A lot of the French are smaller portion in France. But I've kind of Americanized some of it only because
The clientele you're serving.
Exactly.
So have you found that guests coming in, getting into you again as a destination, you have a great menu, you've got great walking traffic that's down there, especially in the season. So is it a continued education of the guests you're coming in? Because your clientele is very diverse. You're getting a lot of tourists.
Yep.
Right? And then you've got a local, market sharing, my friends that are there, locals love you. They make it their place to go.
It is. And we get inspired by, what's on the docks and so forth, daily. But some of the dishes, that consistency is such an important part of what we are. And it's, the souffles and the mousses and things like that you can't do at home, we do, and we do it consistently every day or every year. So when you come once, and it doesn't change that much on the sense of some of the staples, because people love them and come back for them every year. They
Right.
might spend all week going to some burger joints or doing other things or getting fish tacos, but they save one night, for Bouchard's.
It's the special occasion
Yeah.
to come in. So from the menu perspective, you mentioned the docks down in Newport. Is the menu evolving on a regular basis?
It is, but again, we have some staple things that we keep for years and years. That I made the same souffle that I made, 40 years ago,
Okay, yeah.
and things like that. That can never change. You can be definitely inspired, being creatively. But what happens is that you can't forget, some of the classic stuff.
Right,
It
absolutely.
gets lost with too many people putting too many things together, and it becomes kind of like a garbage pit.
Right. So I have to say that when I've dined in Bouchard's, is that I saw you personally, so that was
Mhm.
great. But your staff seemed incredibly knowledgeable and answered all my questions. So this is one of the big things we talk about from an education standpoint, is that when you're going to these restaurants and you're learning these new things, especially from the French side of things, people seem to always know that the culinary world started to explode with the French cuisine and Julia Child way back when, but then they forget that it is a friendly style food. It's not an imposing food, it just
Right.
has that aura of it.
Yeah.
But I think that your staff does a good job, and you as well, being able to come out and talk to diners and explain the style that you're serving.
Yeah, we don't like to be pretentious, and we're not,
Yeah.
and that is some of the perception that French dining could be like. But no, we have a dress code for sure, because people are celebrating, anniversaries. But you
Oh,
don't have
yeah.
to wear a jacket or a tie, just khakis and a collared shirt.
The restaurant's very comfortable.
Yeah.
You've got, how many tables in the restaurant?
About 15.
And how many does the bar?
The bar just has a couple there, but the Sarah bar, which is in between the two, which
Right.
is so much fun. It's kind of seasonal because it's really an alleyway that we put a bar in, and it's really it's like a party every
It's
night.
a cool spot, yeah, it's a fun spot, because that's
Yeah.
why I've been to that as well. Well, Chef, this is awesome, very educational, so I got two last questions for you before I let you go. You brought in these two amazing dishes, but guests are always asking me to find out, what is something you would tell someone not to miss on your menu, something you highly encourage them to try, and then what's something that's your favorite, even if it's not the favorite dish name, but something you prefer to cook that you really enjoy?
Well, not to miss the souffle, because we do it, I think, better than anybody. Those kind of things that that make French cuisine French, the warm mousses and things like that we'll do. We'll do sometimes blue cheese mousse or timbale
Oh, God.
with lobster and like a flan and things like that, with always interesting sauces. And then one of my favorite foods to eat and to cook is sweetbreads, veal sweetbreads. That's the thymus gland.
Really?
Yeah. We do it. It doesn't sell a lot, so we only do it on occasion. But it's a French staple. But it's a thymus gland, and it's delicate like pheasant, but
So it's easy to eat. It's easy to eat. It's,
Yeah,
it's not that tough cut.
No, it's not
Okay,
tough at all,
okay.
and it's really a really delicate flavor, and we love to do that with wild mushrooms or.
Oh, see, he's talking about all the things that I love. Mushrooms and asparagus, and we got the duck. I'm in great shape. Well, Chef, thank you very much for making the trip down here today.
Sure.
I look forward to having the revolving door in next week, and thank you for showcasing these dishes and
I
educating
know
us.
you're going to have some of this
Oh,
wine.
yes,
when you come
yes,
next time.
I will. You know I will. No question about
Okay.
that. Thank you, Chef.
Perfect.
Just like that.
Yep.
I'll get this out there for you.
Okay. Should I leave this down here?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So, Bouchard's in Newport. Awesome dishes. Make sure you check it out. Thank you again, Chef.